Dr. Stephanie Venn Watson is a leading expert in C15, a saturated fatty acid that is vital for health.
She has found the link between C15 deficiency and insulin resistance, and there's an easy fix.
What can people feel in the body that might indicate C15 deficiency?
Understand that it's accelerated aging. Think about fatigue, joint pain, poor sleep. That's what a C15 deficiency is doing. It's really going to get picked up when you go to your doctors and you get a test. Your hemoglobin may be declining. Your ferritin may be increased. You then may see the downstream effects then of type 2 diabetes, heart disease, signs of insulin resistance. Dairy fat is such a reliable source of our C15, Rena, that how much C15 we have tells you how much dairy fat you ate. Cows that are fed grass have twice as much C15 than cows that are fed corn. And just 1 to 2 tablespoons of butter can get you that 100 to 200 milligrams of C15 per day.
Welcome.
It was wonderful to be here, Rena.
If someone is just watching this, most likely they have insulin resistance and at least one chronic disease. And we're told that just comes from sugar. But that is not entirely the case. You see, there is one newly discovered cause of insulin resistance that doesn't come from sugar. So today, Dr. Venn Watson is going to share this new research and the one deficiency that is causing insulin resistance and chronic disease. We're going to talk about how to naturally fix it and why you need to eat more butter. So Dr. Venn Watson, my first question, what is this newly discovered cause of insulin resistance?
Right. So it's C15, or what we're going to talk about, lack of C15, nutritional deficiency, the first nutritional deficiency, Rena, discovered in over 75 years. So we'll talk about how that's happened and, also be able to talk about how dolphins are helped, really get us there, and a shared evolutionary driver for insulin resistance between both dolphins and humans.
Absolutely. I think people will be thinking, what is C15? What is C15 deficiency? Firstly, it doesn't just affect or cause insulin resistance. This deficiency also causes every other chronic disease that people are facing. Can you explain those? And what is that connection?
Yeah, absolutely. So C15 is an odd chain saturated fatty acid. Yes, saturated fat that's present in butter. Our primary source of C15 is from whole dairy fat. And it has now recognized as the first essential fatty acid to be discovered in over 90 years. And so we put that stake in the ground back in 2020 in Nature Scientific Reports. And since then, Rena, there have been 4 independent studies that have been done by 3 other teams, and they have come up with the same conclusion, even using gold standard studies of that originally defined the first 2 essential fatty acids, one which was an omega-3 and omega-6. So wonderful to get that validation. Its primary roles is it's a stable fatty acid that has no double bonds. So it is not susceptible to attack by oxygen and lipid peroxidation. So it's stable. It goes into our cell membranes. It stabilizes our cells against age-driving lipid peroxidation. So it's a really simple mechanism. And what we've learned and we published in Metabolites last year is if we don't have enough C15 in our cell membranes, they become fragile. And that's where it's tied into an entirely new form of cell death called ferroptosis, which was discovered by Columbia University scientists back in 2012, where they published this paper, Rena, of an entirely new way that our cells were dying, which is a really big deal because, like in cell biology class, right, we learned there's apoptosis, necrosis, and autophagy. And those are the 3 ways that our cells die. So they discovered a 4th, and it was very specific. It's where cell membranes, the fatty acids in them become fragile. It increases lipid peroxidation. That lipid peroxidation combines with iron that is in the cell that shouldn't be there. And when you combine lipid peroxidation with iron, you get massive reactive oxygen species, takes out the mitochondria, kills the cell. So since that paper was published, 10,000 papers have been published on ferroptosis, showing that it accelerates aging, accelerates the onset of type 2 diabetes, heart disease, fatty liver disease, a lot of these conditions, that we're talking about, cognitive health, all of these things. But nobody understood why ferroptosis showed up in the first place. And that's where we learned that and have shown that deficiencies in C15 in our diet are now causing the cellular fragility syndrome, causing ferroptosis and all the downstream complications. The good news is with nutritional deficiencies is right, they're fixable.
Your background is a veterinarian epidemiologist. What does that mean?
Right, exactly. So I'm a veterinarian. So got check that box. And then, but I became a veterinarian, Rena, to be a veterinary epidemiologist, which is, a veterinarian who tracks diseases and looks for patterns of diseases in populations to understand risk factors and, most importantly, protective factors against diseases. So I was originally, working with a CDC and World Health Organization like 20 years ago. Was recruited by the Navy, and good on them for looking for veterinary epidemiologists to continually improve the health and welfare of a growing population that they had of aging Navy dolphins. If you look at dolphins in the wild, they live to about 20. The Navy has cared for this population of about 100 bottlenose dolphins for over 60 years. They're now living into their 40s, 50s, and even to 60 years old. So they have this growing population of older geriatric dolphins. Over a period of 10 years, we published a series of papers showing that about 1 in 3 of these dolphins were developing insulin resistance, fatty liver disease, iron overload, ferroptosis. So that really gave us this unique opportunity, with the pure intent to help the dolphins understand healthy aging in dolphins, but then it had a spin out benefit to humans too. So we use this advanced technology called metabolomics, and we were able to very easily, because this is such a clean population, right, compared to humans, because all they eat are fish and they have the same environment, same healthcare. They don't drink, they don't smoke, a very stable population. We were able to use metabolomics, study thousands of small molecules present in their archived serum, but as well as their all fish diet, to see which small molecules predicted the healthy aging dolphins. We thought it'd be omega-3s because all they eat are fish, but instead we were completely surprised by the fact that it was C15 was the top predictor of healthy aging dolphins who did not have insulin resistance. And then, add on top of that, like we shared, this was a saturated fatty acid. So that we had these kind of co-occurring dolphins and humans getting C15 deficient diets. And then we watch over the decades, things like fatty liver disease show up. Non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, or MASLD, that is now called, the first 30 cases were reported in humans by Mayo Clinic in 1980. Today, 1 in 3 people have this condition. We were seeing the same thing happening in the dolphins. And we now know that for the dolphins and now in humans, stronger and stronger evidence showing that C15 deficiencies are at least a driver of at least a specific phenotype of fatty liver disease in humans. So if you eat a lot of stable fatty acids, like saturated fats, your cell membrane is going to be more stable. If you eat more polyunsaturated fatty acids, which have double bonds, and which is why they're oils at room temperature and susceptible to attack by oxygen, you're going to have more fragile cell membranes. So, and this is fixable, that, within 3 to 6 months, based upon your diet, you can completely change the structure of your cell membranes. Specific amount of C15 in our cell membranes in order to avoid ferroptosis. And in general, that's greater than 0.2% of fatty acids in that cell membrane needs to be C15. So it's not like 20% of the cell membrane. It's like there are these little bricks in the cell, in our cell membrane, and we need just enough of them in there to avoid deficiency and falling apart. There is evidence that if we can double or even triple that amount to 0.4 or 0.6, that it can further support heart health. And like, for example, the Sardinians in the high longevity zone, they have levels that are 0.4, 0.6%. Because of their diet. They also have a lower risk of dying from heart disease. A separate study showed that these higher levels of C15 are protective against development of heart disease. So we're seeing that there are these optimal levels, but we just want to start with like, let's not be deficient. So when we talk about ferroptosis, what happens is we have low C15 levels, and our cells become more fragile. This includes our red blood cells. So our red blood cells become more fragile, and we have cells inside of our liver called Kupffer cells. And the job of the Kupffer cells is to basically take out any weak red blood cells that are in our system, and they recycle the iron, and that's great. The problem is when we have lots of fragile red blood cells, the Kupffer cells then work overtime, and they're engulfing all of these red blood cells. What's left behind of the corpses of these red blood cells is iron. So now we have iron overload in the liver that, again, is accumulating over time, like we're talking about over a decade. What patients will see, or what doctors will see in patients, is called hyperferritinemia. So high levels of ferritin in the blood often gets interpreted as inflammation, which it's that too, but it's also a key measurement of too much iron in the tissues. So you have iron overload now in the liver paired with lipid peroxidation, right, of weak cells, including the liver cells. So you have that lipid peroxidation paired with the iron, and then that then kicks off ferroptosis in the liver. And so this phenotype is a liver-centric, really red blood cell first, liver-centric disease. That then progresses to the iron and reactive oxygen species and lipid peroxidation spill over in systemically, and it seeds our brain, our pancreas, our heart, and our different organs. And if you go and you do a Google search for iron overload, this is where you understand that just in last year alone was the highest number of papers ever published on iron overload, because it's really come to be understood as a problem, all getting back to this core base issue. And that's where the insulin resistance comes in. It's a later stage component of impacting the liver, but also the pancreas with regard to impairing glucose metabolism.
Dr. Stephanie Venn Watson, I had you on earlier this year, but
we've discovered a deficiency syndrome thanks to C15 deficiencies, and it's called cellular fragility syndrome. And so it's a giant discovery. And what's so wonderful about discovering a nutritional deficiency, even though, it sounds devastating, is that this is something we can detect, Thomas, and something we can fix. So excited to be able to be here to talk about this discovery and, what it means for all of us.
What exactly is cellular fragility?
So when we talk about, our bodies are made out of cells. So every part of us is made out of cells, and our cells are armored by these cell membranes. And so the cell membranes are made out of lipids, and they can become weak. And what we've learned is that based upon the type of fatty acids in the cell membrane dictates how strong or weak our cells' membranes are. And why do we care about that? Well, it's because when our cells become weak, they undergo faster aging. So basically, they fall apart a lot faster. They age faster. That translates to us aging faster. And so what's so important about this discovery is we've learned that over the past 12 years of research, not just us, but others around the world, that if we don't have a certain level of C15 in our cell membrane, this sturdy saturated fatty acid in our cell membranes become weak. We age faster than we should, and we now think it may explain the onset of these aging-associated diseases. Things like type 2 diabetes, fatty liver disease, heart disease are increasing in younger and younger people, and now we think that the C15 deficiency syndrome, cellular fragility syndrome, may be the cause of why younger people are getting older diseases. Back in 2012, there was a group of scientists at Columbia University, and they published this paper in which they discovered an entirely new way that our cells were dying, and it's called ferroptosis.